single for 24 years, and this is what I get for saving a fox in the middle of the night. A squatter. Early in the morning, a girl was standing by my bedside, clutching a massive, museum-quality blue sapphire in her hand and calling me savior. "I want to experience human life," she announced. "This rock is for room and board. If it's not enough, I'll go dig up more in the mountains." I held the gem, which was easily worth more than my entire existence, my hand shaking like I had sudden onset Parkinson's. I wanted to accept the fortune with tears of gratitude, but it turned out she had a massive misunderstanding of what experiencing life entailed. She chewed Coca-Cola bottles, glass and all, along with the soda. She watched horror movies and reverted to her true form, scaring the ghosts on screen to tears. I didn't just have to teach her how to be a person. I had to stop her from trying to repay the favor at every turn. "Savior," that guy glared at you. "Should I go bite his throat out?" "No, that's the meter reader." I desperately held her back, unaware that for the first time in my life, a life spent bowing and scraping to the world, someone was actually standing up for me. Until that greedy occultist showed up, showing off a pile of fox pelts. I clenched my fist. This time, the pushover was going to snap. I held the pigeon egg-sized sapphire, my knuckles turning white. The light refracting off the thing was nearly blinding. "Savior, is it enough?" The girl tilted her head, her fox-like eyes curving into crescents. The corner of her mouth still had grease from the rotisserie chicken I'd fed her last night. Where did this come from?" My voice trembled. If this was stolen, I'd be making license plates in prison for the rest of my life. "Dug up in the mountains. We used them to pave the walkway at my house." She looked completely unbothered and casually grabbed a solid wooden paperweight from my desk. Snap! The hard ebony wood crumbled into powder in her hand like a dry cookie. I gulped, immediately swallowing the word police. "Enough. It's more than enough. You can stay as long as you want." I plastered a humble smile on my face and carefully tucked the gem into my pocket. This was my sugar mama. I had to treat her like royalty. "I'm Laide." She seemed satisfied with my attitude and swaggered over to the fridge. That black, bubbling water. The people on TV looked really happy drinking it. She pointed at the glass bottles of Coke. I was about to grab the bottle opener when I heard crunch. Crack! Lyra had bitten off the bottle cap and the neck of the glass. The shards crunched loudly in her mouth, a sound that made my teeth ache. "Lyra, spit it out. That's glass." I was scared out of my mind, lunging forward to pry her mouth open. If she died in my apartment, how would I explain this to the cops? Lyra looked at me in confusion, her throat bobbing as she swallowed. "A bit crunchy, but the water is sweet." She burped, exhaling a cloud of carbon dioxide. I collapsed onto the floor, staring at her unscathed lips, realizing exactly what kind of monster I had brought home. Just then my phone rang. The screen flashed, Mom. I flinched reflexively. The joy of the gemstone vanished, replaced by a familiar knot in my stomach. I answered. "Caleb, your brother found a car he likes. He's $5,000 short on the down payment. Send it over now." No pleasantries, no "how are you," not even asking if I was alive. I was a premature baby, sickly my whole life. To them, I was just a walking ATM that never dispensed enough. They only remembered me when they needed something. "Mom, I don't have money right now. My freelance check hasn't cleared." I gripped the phone, my voice buzzing low like a mosquito. "No money? Aren't you writing those articles? You don't even have $5,000? Do you have no shame? We raised you for nothing." Her shrill voice drilled out of the speaker, stinging my eardrum. I lowered my head, staring at the cracks in the floorboards, habitually wanting to apologize, to promise I'd borrow it from somewhere. "I understand. I'll figure some." Before I could finish, a hand reached out and snatched the phone. Lyra had squatted down in front of me, still holding the jagged remains of the Coke bottle. She spoke into the phone, her tone innocent yet brutal. "He doesn't want to give it to you. Do you not speak English?" The other end went silent for a second, then erupted with even more vicious cursing. "Who is this?" "Caleb, you deadbeat. You're spending money on women." Splash. Lyra dropped the phone into my glass of water. The world went quiet. I watched the phone fizzing and bubbling, my heart pounding wildly. "You." That old hag was too loud. Lyra held the remaining half bottle of Coke to my lips, glass shards still glinting dangerously at the rim. "Drink some? It's sweet. Makes you feel better." I looked into her clear eyes, possessing a directness only wild animals have. In that moment, I actually felt that this bottle of soda, laced with glass, was more inviting than any medicine I'd taken in 20 years. My phone was toast, so I dug out an old one with a cracked screen just to get by. To prevent Lyra from doing anything else earth-shattering, like using the gas stove as a torch, I decided to give her urgent orientation training. This is a toilet. It's for, bodily functions. Lyra perched on the toilet seat, staring warily at the clear water. There's a vortex in there. It eats people. That's the flush. I pressed the handle. Whoosh. Lyra shot up to the ceiling like a startled cat, her claws digging deep into the drywall. Plaster dust rained down on my head. Savior. Water monster. It sucked the water dry, she screamed from above. I wiped the dust off my face, tired down to my soul. After coaxing her down, I took her to the bathroom. This is a shower. For bathing. I turned on a nozzle. Warm water sprayed out. Lyra stared at the fine streams, her eyes turning ferocious. The wall is bleeding. The house is hurt. She punched the tiles. Boom! 2 tiles shattered into a spiderweb. The pipe burst, and a high-pressure jet of water blasted me in the face. I stumbled back 3 steps and landed hard on the wet floor. 10 minutes later, I shut off the main valve, soaked to the bone like a death row inmate dragged out of a water dungeon. Lyra stood to the side, innocently holding the shower head she had ripped clean off the wall. It stopped bleeding. I took a deep breath, telling myself, this is the sugar mama. This is millions of dollars. Hold it together. To keep her quiet for a while, I turned on the TV and switched to the horror channel. Since she was a demon, she shouldn't be afraid of ghosts, right? On screen, eerie music played as a woman with long, matted hair crawled out of a well, her fingernails scraping violently against the ground. I grabbed a pillow to cover half my face, trembling slightly. This movie had an 8.9 rating. It was genuinely terrifying. Lyra sat cross-legged on the sofa, crunching on potato chips. She spared the bag this time, while critiquing with disdain. She's so ugly. You call it a ghost? The fake blood on her face isn't even fresh. On screen, the ghost jerked her head up and let out a piercing shriek. I flinched. Lyra got annoyed. Too loud. Her pupils instantly narrowed into vertical slits, and a low, guttural growl vibrated from her chest. It wasn't a sound a human could make. It was a prehistoric threat from the deep jungle. Roar. An invisible shockwave blasted through the living room. The curtains danced without wind, and the glass on the coffee table hummed. The TV screen flickered, and the ghost in the movie actually froze, then skipped forward as if the signal had been terrified into glitching. I stared, jaw dropped. That works? You can scare a ghost so bad the DVD skips. Before I could recover from the shock, someone pounded on my front door like they were trying to break it down. Caleb Reed, are you trying to die? What is that screaming at noon? It was Mrs. Higgins from downstairs, the HOA's complainer-in-chief. I rushed to open the door, bending my back almost 90 degrees. I'm sorry, Mrs. Higgins, I was watching a movie. The volume was a bit high. I'm really sorry. Mrs. Higgins pointed at my nose. Watching a movie? Sounds like you're raising a wild dog in there. If it happens again, I'm calling the police. Sickly little invalid. Can't you give anyone some peace? Spittle flew onto my face. I kept my head down, smiling apologetically, bowing repeatedly. I was used to it. As long as I bowed, as long as I admitted fault, it would pass. This was my survival strategy. Mrs. Higgins cursed enough, then turned and waddled away. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long breath. When I looked up, I saw Lyra standing in the middle of the living room, her amber eyes fixed on me. She cursed at you. Why did you bow? I avoided her gaze and went to clean up the mess by the sofa. Because she's an elder. Because we're neighbors. Because it's better to avoid trouble. But she wanted to bite you. Lyra walked over and grabbed my wrist. Her hand was hot, so hot I shivered. In the mountains, if anyone dares to bark at me, I bite their neck off. I pulled my hand back and gave a bitter laugh. Lyra, this is human society. You can't bite people. Biting people sends you to jail. My phone buzzed. It was an old friend, Dave. Caleb, need to borrow $200 for an emergency. Pay you back next week. He still hadn't paid back the 100 from last month. But as I looked at the text, my fingers were already typing. Okay, transferring it now. Even though I just got yelled at by my family and my neighbor, I was still terrified of refusing. If I didn't lend it, would he be mad? Would he tell everyone I was cheap? Then I really wouldn't have any friends left. Just as I was about to enter my payment password, a hand shot out and hit the video call button. Then Lyra shouted at the phone. He's full of sickness. He's dying. He doesn't have money to buy you a coffin. Get lost. After roaring, she hung up and blocked him. I stood there stunned. Then a wave of irrational anger rushed to my head. It was the first time I yelled at her. What are you doing? Who gave you the right to touch my phone? If I don't lend it to him, how awkward will it be next time we meet? If I don't do this, no one will talk to me. I screamed until my voice cracked, venting all the grievances of the day. Lyra wasn't scared. Instead, She took a step forward, forcing me to look at her. Then don't talk to them. That friend of yours smells worse than a sewer rat. She pointed at my chest. You're rotting inside right here, and you're worried about being awkward? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My chest was aching dully. It was the dignity I had suppressed for 20 years, rotting, festering. Getting angry had a price, especially for someone like me, who lived on medication. That night, I burned up with a fever, feeling like I'd been tossed into a furnace. My throat felt like I'd swallowed razor blades, and every breath tasted like copper. In the darkness, I curled up under the quilt, cold sweat soaking my pajamas. Hospital again? Did the 3 digits left in my bank account cover the ER copay? Forget it, just write it out. Maybe tomorrow I'd be better. Or maybe I'd just die and it would be over. In my daze, I felt something wet and warm rubbing against my forehead, rough like sandpaper. I struggled to open my eyes. A magnified face was right in front of me. Lyra was squatting by the headboard, licking my forehead, literally licking, like an animal grooming its cub, rhythmic and incredibly serious. I jolted, nearly rolling off the bed. What? What are you doing? Lyra saw I was awake, her eyes lighting up. Cooling you down. When I had a fever as a cub, Grandma licked me like this. I glanced at her pink tongue, brain flashing to some inappropriate thoughts, and my face burned even hotter. No. No need. I'm human. No leaking. Lyra said, oh, looking disappointed. She suddenly remembered something, pulled the blue sapphire from her chest pocket, and tried to shove it into my mouth. Then eat this. This rock has good energy. You'll definitely get better. The hard stone clacked against my front teeth. I quickly turned my head. If I swallow that, I'll choke to death. Was she trying to save me or assassinate me? Lyra frowned, looking distressed. Humans are so troublesome. Can't be licked, can't eat rocks. She paced around the room twice. Then her eyes lit up, and she ran out of the bedroom. Moments later, a series of loud bangs and crashes came from the kitchen, followed by a strange burning smell. My heart jumped into my throat. Was she bombing the kitchen? 20 minutes later, Lyra walked in holding a large mixing bowl. Dark, viscous liquid dripped down the side. I saw on TV when people are sick, they drink hot porridge. She shoved the bowl in my face, looking expectant. Drink it while it's hot. I looked down. This wasn't porridge. Half-raw rice grains floated in muddy water alongside. Were those weeds? Still covered in dirt? She must have pulled them from the apartment complex's flower bed. And that black lump, if I wasn't mistaken, that was a whole, unpeeled ginger root. Drink up. I added strong ingredients, Lyra urged. I looked at the bowl of biohazard waste, my stomach churning. But then I looked up and saw the red blisters on her hands. Burns. She was afraid to even turn on a faucet. Yet she burned herself trying to cook this for me. For 20 years, whenever I was sick, all I heard was so troublesome, costing money again. Why don't you just die? No one had ever clumsily cooked me a meal, even if it was poison. My nose stung, and a tear fell into the bowl. Why are you crying? Is it too hot? Lyra looked panicked, leaning in to blow furiously on the bowl. No, it's not hot. I lifted the bowl and gulped it down. Bitter, astringent, and tasting of soil. But I finished every drop. Lyra looked at the empty bowl, smiling proudly. Her ears accidentally popped out, twitching twice. I've got you back now. No one is allowed to make you sick. She reached out, placing her slightly cool palm on my forehead. A warm current drilled into my body from her hand, and miraculously, the pain and cold receded. Just then, that damned old phone rang again. It was Dave, probably because I blocked him on text. He was calling relentlessly. The ringtone was piercing in a quiet night. I moved to grab it, but Lyra answered first, and she put on speaker. Caleb, stop playing dead. You blocked me? Believe it or not, I'll come to your office and make a scene. The angry roar echoed from the speaker. I instinctively wanted to explain, but Lyra pressed one hand on my shoulder and held the phone with the other, letting out a low growl into the receiver. He's dying. Get lost. It wasn't a curse. It was a command filled with killing intent, a promise to tear flesh. The other end went instantly silent, followed by the busy signal. Lyra tossed the phone aside and tucked me back in. Sleep. If it rings again, I'll go bite his throat. I huddled in the blanket, watching her glowing eyes in the dark. For the first time, I felt that being bullied into submission actually felt pretty good. That night, I slept more soundly than I ever had. After recovering, I started seriously teaching Lyra how to survive in human society, how to use a fork, how to watch traffic lights, and how not to let her tail hang out. Lyra learned slowly but seriously. That evening, we sat on the balcony eating watermelon. Lyra suddenly asked a question that caught me off guard. Caleb, why did your brother need a car? You had to give him money? You don't have money yourself. I spit out a watermelon seed, silent for a long time. Because I'm the older brother. In the Fox clan, if the older brother is weak, the younger brother shares his prey with him. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes clear as a mirror reflecting my pathetic state. They don't love you. The sentence was like a bullet, piercing right through my defenses. My hand tightened around the watermelon rind. I know. My head hung low, voice raspy. I was sickly growing up, drained of family savings. My parents think I'm a burden, a jinx. To make up for it, I tried desperately to be good to them, to everyone. If I don't do that, I feel like I have no value. I feel like I don't deserve to be loved. The air was terrifyingly quiet. Suddenly, cool hands cupped my face, forcing me to look up. Lyra was close, so close I could count her eyelashes. Listen to me, Caleb. Her expression was more serious than I'd ever seen. You feel pain. You get tired. You get sad. She pointed to my chest. If it hurts you, you bite back. Whoever makes you unhappy, you make them more unhappy. I don't understand your human twisty rules. But I know, if you don't even love yourself, no one will love you. You are my savior. I won't allow you to treat yourself like garbage. In that moment, I felt something shatter inside me. It was the shell of the people-pleaser, cracked open by this ignorant monster. Light flooded in. Right in the middle of this tender moment, the doorbell rang like a death knell. Schilling, urgent. I stiffened. Only one person knocked like that. I opened the door. Sure enough, there stood my brother, Connor. He was wearing designer clothes, hair slicked back with oil. He looked at me in my pajamas, looking sickly, and his eyes flashed with disgust. Bro, what took so long? Hiding someone. He pushed past me, strutting into the apartment like he owned it. Mom said you got money. Not only are you holding out on us, but you're keeping a woman. His gaze landed on Lyra on the sofa. His eyes went wide. Lyra was wearing my white button-down shirt, tied at the waist, revealing pale skin. She was breathtaking. Connor gulped, his look turning lecherous. Yo, this is the sister-in-law? She's hot. He turned to me, extending his hand, palm up. Bro, since you have money to keep a dime piece like this, $5,000 shouldn't be a problem, right? Cough it up. The dealership is waiting for my deposit. It was a tone of absolute entitlement, as if my money was his money. He even added, Mom said you have some big gemstone. Bring it out. Let me see. If it's real, I'll take it for collateral. I stood there, looking at this bandit who shared my blood. Then I looked at Lyra on the sofa, her eyes narrowing, fingernails lengthening. This time, I didn't go for my wallet like a coward. I stepped in front of Lyra, blocking Connor's greedy line of sight. Connor, I said his name. You want money? Connor shook his leg impatiently. Duh. Hurry up, stop stalling. It's not like I won't pay you back. Although you don't really need that much money, seeing as you won't live long anyway. That was my brother, wishing me an early death so he could inherit my stuff. Rage boiled in my chest, burning my fingertips. I remembered Lyra's words. If you don't love yourself, no one will love you. Whoever makes you unhappy, make them more unhappy. I took a deep breath, looked up, and stared straight into Connor's eyes. Get out. The voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet room, it was like a thunderclap. Connor froze, as if hearing a foreign language. What did you say? You told me to get out. He dug a finger in his ear, face full of disbelief. Caleb, are you fever delirious? I'm your brother. Mom told you to give the money. You dare refuse? I said get the hell out. This is my house. The money is mine. I spend it on whoever I want. You want a car? Earn it yourself. Stop staring at me like a vampire. Connor was scared back a step by my intensity, then turned furious. He rushed up to grab my collar. You're revolting, daring to talk to me like that. I'll beat you. His hand hadn't even touched me when a white blur flashed. Slash! Connor screamed, clutching his wrist and stumbling back. 3 bloody scratch marks appeared on the back of his hand, skin peeled back, bone visible. Lyra was suddenly standing between us. She hadn't fully transformed, but her eyes were vertical slits, and sharp fangs poked from her lips. She stood with her back to me, facing Connor, letting out a low hiss. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Connor looked at Lyra in terror, then at the wall, where deep gouges remained from Lyra's warning swipe. That was a load-bearing wall. Monster. You're sick. Raising a monster. Connor's face was white. Primal fear erased any thought of fighting back. Leave. Lyra took a step forward. Connor didn't dare stay another second. He scrambled for the door, losing a shoe in the process. Caleb, just you wait. I am telling Mom. Bang. Silence returned to the room. My legs gave out, and I collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. I did it. I actually refused. And, holy hell, felt amazing. Good job, dummy. A hand landed on my head, ruffling my hair. I looked up, seeing Lyra smiling at me. But the next second, her smile froze. Her body swayed, and the fluffy ears on her head popped out uncontrollably. Her rosy complexion turned paper white instantly. Lyra, I scrambled to hold her. Her body was terrifyingly hot, but her hands and feet were ice cold. I'm okay. Just use some essence, bit tired. Lyra leaned weakly against my chest, her voice faint. The pollution in this city is too heavy. I can't breathe. My heart tightened. She did this to defend me. What do I do? Medicine? Or the gem? I fumbled to get the sapphire. Lyra shook her head. No need. I just need to absorb some wood energy in the park. She closed her eyes, appearing to sleep. I looked at her exposed fox ears, anxiety filling my chest. Neither of us noticed that when Connor fled, he hadn't fully closed the downstairs building door. And in the shadows of the complex, a pair of cloudy, venomous eyes were staring fixedly at my balcony. There, he sensed the demon aura he had coveted for so long. Lyra was getting lethargic. Sometimes she couldn't even maintain her human form, curling up as a small fox in the corner of the sofa. I was panicked, taking her to the small woods in the park every midnight to recharge. One day, I went downstairs to the convenience store to buy Lyra her favorite rotisserie chicken. As soon as I walked out of the building, a middle-aged man in a ragged trench coat, holding a compass, blocked my path. Young man, hold on. This guy looked like a weasel, with triangular eyes gleaming with cunning. He didn't look like a good person. I stepped back warily. I don't want a fortune-telling. I'm not buying charms. I have no money. I try to walk around him. You've been feeling unusually healthy lately, haven't you? The man's words stopped me in my tracks. I had felt much better. I used to wheeze after a few steps. Now I could climb 6 flights of stairs easily. I knew it was Lyra's energy nourishing me. Seeing me stop, the man smiled darkly, revealing yellow teeth. That's because someone is using demon essence to extend your life. But you have to pay it back. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. That is a demon. She will suck your yang energy. She's treating you well now to fatten up your spirit, then she'll drain you dry. You'll turn into a dried husk. My heart skipped a beat, but I put on a look like he was crazy. What nonsense are you talking about? What demon? I've just been working out. The man sneered, seemingly expecting my denial. He pulled a yellow paper talisman from his coat and forced it into my hand. Stick this above your door. If there really is a demon, it will reveal its true form. If not, consider it good luck. I am Vane, a hunter of the dark arts. I cleanse evil for free. He gave me a meaningful look and walked away. I clutched the paper, my palms sweating. That man's gaze felt like a venomous snake crawling up my spine. Back home, Lyra was sitting cross-legged on the sofa, watching a soap opera, cried her eyes out. Boo-hoo, that guy's so mean. Why did he dump the girl? She wiped snot on my sleeve. I looked at the ear tip occasionally popping out of her hair, then at the talisman in my hand. Drain my energy? Become a husk? I remembered the night she clumsily licked my forehead, burning her hand to make me porridge. I remembered her standing in front of me, chasing away my leech of a brother. If this was a demon, she was more human than most people I knew. I walked to the trash can. What's wrong? Lyra looked at me with red eyes. What's in your hand? In front of her, I tore the yellow talisman into pieces and threw it in the bin. Nothing. Junk mail. Elite. But my heart was firmer than ever. Even if she was a demon, she was my family. But I underestimated the evil of humanity and the greed of that occultist. My trust didn't protect her. It pushed us into the abyss. Vane was obviously watching me. When he saw I hadn't used the talisman, he dropped the disguise. Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Caleb, help me. Lyra's pained groan came from the phone, background by the sizzle of electricity. My brain exploded. Who is this? Where are you? The abandoned chemical plant, West Side. The big warehouse. Remember, bring the blue sapphire. Come alone. If you call the cops, you can come collect this little fox's corpse. It was Vane's voice. The line went dead. I rushed out like a madman, hailing a cab straight to the West Side. My hands shook the whole way. I hated myself for not being vigilant, for leaving her alone at home. The abandoned factory smelled of acrid chemicals. The sunset bled through broken windows, dyeing everything blood red. I pushed open the warehouse doors. In the center of the empty floor, Vane sat on a folding chair, toying with a boning knife. Tied to a pillar nearby was Lyra. She was bound tight with red ropes that seemed soaked in something caustic. They burned into her skin, emitting white smoke. She had reverted to her true form. Fox ears drooping, 9 red tails hanging limply on the ground, her white shirt stained red with blood. Seeing me, Lyra struggled to open her eyes. Don't come over. Run. Her voice was as weak as a flickering candle. My heart felt squeezed by a giant hand, pain making it hard to breathe. Let her go, I shouted, gripping the blue sapphire. Vane stood up, greedy eyes landing on the gem, then shifting to Lyra. Kid, this fox is a top-tier vessel. Look at her fur, red as fire. It would make a warm scarf for winter. And her core, refined into medicine, it extends life. He licked his lips. Give me the gem, and the fox is mine too. I can even cure your sickness, let you live to 90. Deal. It was a massive temptation. Wealth, health, longevity. Things people dreamed of. And the cost was just an animal. I looked at Lyra. Her eyes held no plea for help, only despair. As if she knew that humans, faced with profit, always chose betrayal. She closed her eyes, awaiting judgment. I took a deep breath and held up the gem. This stone is worth millions. It's yours. Vane's eyes lit up, reaching for it. But I pulled my hand back. I want you to release her first. Vane sneered. You think you're in a position to negotiate? He flicked a finger. Bam! An invisible blast hit my chest. I flew back like a kite with a cut string, slamming heavily into the wall. My insides shifted and I coughed up blood. Mortals are truly as fragile as ants before these dark arts. Ungrateful. Vane held the knife, walking slowly toward Lyra. Since you won't give it, I'll skin her right in front of you. Show you what happens when you refuse a toast, only to drink a forfeit. Vane didn't strike immediately. He seemed to enjoy the torture, preferring to break a person's mind first. He kicked a burlap sack nearby. Speed. Several complete pelts rolled out. Red, white, gray. All fox skins. Some still had dried blood on them. Empty eye sockets accusing the living. See? This is what happens to the disobedient ones. Vane stepped on a red pelt, grinding his heel. This one, maybe your aunt? Or sister. Same litter, tastes about the same. Lyra let out a piercing scream, a heart-rending wail. She struggled desperately, the red ropes cutting deeper, blood running down the pillar. I'll kill you. I'll kill you, she sobbed, the light in her eyes shattering. I lay on the ground, stomach churning at the sight of the skins. Those weren't just furs, they were lives. This Vane wasn't human. He was a demon in human skin. Anger overrode fear, blood rushing to my head. I wanted to rush him, but I didn't have the strength to stand. I couldn't win a fight. Absolutely not. This was reality, not a comic book. There was no sudden power-up. I had to outsmart him. I had to make him stop. My brain spun, rejecting 1,000 ideas. Finally, only one crazy gamble remained. Just as Vane raised the boning knife to Lyra's neck. Wait, I shouted, using all my strength to prop myself up. Vane paused, looking back at me with amusement. What? Changed your mind? I wiped the blood from my mouth, forcing a smile that was uglier than crying. I put on an air of mystery, even straightening my messy collar. Master Vane, you just want the best medicine, right? I pointed at Lyra. This fox just transformed. Her spirit is unstable. Killing her now is a waste. A reckless waste of heaven's gifts. Vane frowned. Though he was evil, he followed the old rules. He checked the time, clearly hesitating. How do you know this? He had me suspiciously. You have 0 spiritual energy. You're a muggle. I'm normal, yes. I sneered, betting my life on this acting performance. But my family, we have practitioners. I'm technically a secular disciple, handling worldly affairs for my sect. I was raising this fox with my senior brother. You dare touch his property? Do you want to die? Vane was paranoid by nature. Hearing this, the knife in his hand wavered. He feared peers stronger than him, and feared hidden sects even more. You have a senior brother? He narrowed his eyes. Why didn't you call him earlier? Because I follow the path of dust. I can't easily invoke karma. I lied smoother by the second, sitting up straight. That was a test for me. But now you want to kill and ruin the material. I have to break the rules. I pulled out my phone, palms sweating so much I almost dropped it. Wait right there. I'm calling for backup. Vane didn't move. He was observing. If I showed one crack, that knife would fly into my throat. Right in front of him, I dialed a number. To make sure he heard, I didn't use speakerphone, but turned the volume up slightly. Hey, senior brother. I made my voice lazy, arrogant. Yeah, ran into trouble. Some blind occultist want to steal your fox. Want to skin it. At the old chemical plant. A deep male voice came from the phone. Confirm your location? My heart pounded. That was the 911 dispatcher. I had dialed emergency services. Yeah, sent the pin. Bring the heavy gear, guy's a bit tricky. Bring more people. Bring the thunder array tools. Please stay on the... I immediately hung up. I sneered at Vane. Wait for it. 10 minutes. I'll give you 10 minutes. Vane sat back in his chair, wiping his knife. If you're bluffing, I'll skin you first, then the fox. Those 10 minutes were the longest of my life. Every second was a dance on a knife's edge. Lyra was still bleeding, her breathing shallow. She looked at me, eyes full of confusion. She didn't understand where this senior brother came from. I couldn't explain. I just gave her a trust me look. Sweat rolled down my temples, dripping into the dust. Vane stared at me constantly, the suffocating feeling of being locked on by a predator. 7 minutes. 8 minutes. 9 minutes. Vane stood up. Time's up. Looks like you lied. He raised a knife, killing intent exploding. I closed my eyes, counting silently. 3, 2, 1. Whoop, whoop, whoop. The piercing wail of sirens cut through the sky like the voice of God. Outside the factory, red and blue lights flashed frantically, turning the dim warehouse into a disco. A bullhorn boomed, deafeningly loud. Listen up in there. You are surrounded. Drop your weapons. Hands on your head. Vane's face went ghastly white. Your senior brother. Worked for the government. He thought it was some paranormal bureau or black ops. Boom. The rusty iron doors were breached. A SWAT team in full tactical gear swarmed in behind ballistic shields. Dozens of black rifle barrels pointed straight at Vane. Freeze! Police! Vane was dumbfounded. He had some minor magic to beat up civilians, but he couldn't stop bullets. Facing 30 automatic rifles, even a god would be turned into Swiss cheese. I instantly gained my courage, pointing at Vane and shouting with vengeful glee. Officers! That's him! Smuggling and killing endangered animals. The pelts on the floor are evidence. He also kidnapped and blackmailed. That knife is the weapon. The police saw the fox pelts, and their eyes sharpened. Then they saw Lyra tied to the pillar, covered in blood in their eyes, a girl in cosplay, gear being tortured by a pervert. The captain waved his hand. Take him. Vane tried to resist, muttering, by the order of the heavens. ZZZZT. A taser prong hit him in the chest. Vane convulsed, foaming at the mouth, flopping like a dead fish. 2 officers tackled him, grinding his face into the dirt. Click. Handcuffs locked. Stay down. What are you mumbling? Illegal possession of weapons, poaching endangered species, kidnapping. You're going away for a long time. With his face pressed in the dust, Vane shouted in disbelief. This is against the rules. A duel of arts cannot involve the police. You have no honor. I struggled to crawl over to him. Despite the pain, I gave him the biggest middle finger of my life. Times have changed, wizard. It's called the rule of law. Also, go memorize the Wildlife Protection Act. I rushed to the pillar. An officer helped me untie Lyra. I immediately took off my jacket and draped it over her head, hiding the ears that hadn't retracted in her tail. Lyra collapsed into my arms, shaking violently, and wailed. It's okay, it's okay. I held her tight, tears streaming down my face. We survived. By the time I finished my statement, it was deep into the night. Regarding Lyra's identity, I fudged it with cosplay enthusiast and mute from shock. Since I was the victim, the police didn't press too hard. They just hated that pervert Vane. When they raided Vane's lair, they found more animal products and evidence of fraud. Even without the kidnapping charge, just the pelts were enough to put him away forever. I carried Lyra out of the station on my back. She was light as a feather. Caleb, your back is warm, she whispered. I felt warm liquid dripping onto my neck. What's wrong? Do the wounds hurt? My hands are disappearing. Startled, I put her down. Under the street lamp, I saw her palms turning transparent, flickering between human hands and furry paws. Unstable. What's happening? That Taoist array damaged my core essence. And I was terrified. Lyra forced a smile. I'm a newly formed demon. My mind isn't stable. The shock, plus the lack of spiritual energy in the city. I can't hold my human form. I'm going to regress into a beast, lose my memory, and become a normal fox. I froze, struck by lightning. Is there no other way? Eat the gem. I pulled out the sapphire. Lyra shook her head. Useless. I have to go back to the deep mountains, hibernate, and cultivate. Maybe 10 years, maybe 50, before I can regain sentience. That meant we were parting ways. A long, possibly permanent goodbye. We didn't sleep that night. The next day I called in sick. We went to KFC, and she ate an entire family bucket, bones left on the plate this time. We went to the amusement park. She wore a beanie, but I could feel the ears twitching happily underneath. She laughed on the carousel. I watched her and cried. Happy times are always short. At dusk, I drove my rental car to the foot of the mountain where I first met her. The mountain wind was strong and cool. Lyra stood at the edge of the woods and took off her hat. Her beautiful red fox ears trembled in the wind. Her body was already glowing, a sign of imminent transformation. Caleb, she called my name. Yeah. I held back tears, not daring to look at her. Give me your hand. I extended my hand. She placed the blue sapphire, the one she never spent, the one that traveled through a kidnapping and came back, into my palm. You can't give back this time. Use it to cure your illness. Eat good food, buy a big house. Her hand was becoming translucent. I'm gone. You have to remember to bite back. If anyone bullies you, smash them with money. I gripped the gem, still warm from her touch. Will you? Come back. Lyra stepped back. The red glow intensified, her silhouette stretching and shrinking within the light. The light scattered. A purely red, incredibly beautiful little fox stood there. It had amber eyes, agile and cunning. The little fox opened its mouth, speaking human word for the last time. I won't come looking for a dummy who can't take care of himself. When you're healthy, and as fierce as you were when you cursed out that Taoist, I'll come check on you. With that, she turned and ran into the forest. Ran a few steps, looked back. Ran a few more, looked back again. Until the red figure disappeared into the vast sea of trees. I stood there, screaming at the mountain, I will. I'll live well. I'll wait for you. The echo rang in the valley, lingering for a long time. 6 months later, my health improved drastically. Maybe that weed porridge really was a miracle cure, or maybe the energy Lyra left behind was still protecting me. I sold the gem, bought a small but cozy condo, and banked the rest. I cut off contact with my family, blocking all the vampire relatives. I heard my brother got chased by loan sharks for gambling debts, but that had nothing to do with me anymore. I started working out, traveling, living like a normal person. I took a small chip from the sapphire and made a necklace, wearing it against my chest, right where my heart beat. It was my amulet. It was a rainy night. I was sitting by the window, finishing a manuscript, thunder rolling outside. Suddenly, a frantic scratching sound came from the glass. Scritch, scritch. I whipped my head around, heart pounding. On the windowsill, there was a muddy, red paw print. A soaking wet red fox was pressed against the glass, amber eyes full of grievance, as if complaining about why I hadn't opened the door yet. I laughed, tears bursting from my eyes. I rushed over and threw open the window. Do I get a gemstone for room and board this time? The fox leaped into my arms, shaking water all over me. A familiar voice resonated in my mind. Dummy, this time I want beef stew. With real big chunks of beef.